Good Yantiv, Chatima Tova. A number of years ago, I took Ethan to his first Michigan football game at the Big House. We walked into that stadium of nearly 108,000 people. The roar of voices, the sea of maize and blue, the sheer history of that place, it was electric. You don't need to be an alum like me or a diehard Michigan fan to feel it. And yes, I know our Ohio State friends here may want to annul that statement right here on Kol Nidre. But humor aside, the feeling was undeniable. The Big House is one of those places where the energy of the crowd, the weight of tradition, and the sweep of history make you realize you're standing in something that's larger than yourself. You feel past and future braided together. You sense what it means to belong to a story that began before you and one that will continue after you. President Lyndon Johnson once spoke from the Big House in 1964, urging young people to dedicate themselves to building a more just and compassionate world, an invitation to a kind of moral vow to take up an inherited work. That's what I wanted Ethan to experience and sense in that moment. We inherit not just a past, but a responsibility. In a place like that stadium, you realize you're part of something that will outlast you, bound to stories and sacrifices you did not make, but that now belong to you. If that's true of a stadium where tradition, memory, and purpose echo, how much more so in the legacy of Jewish life? We too inherit vows we did not choose. We carry the promises of our ancestors to God, to Torah, to one another. And among those promises is a bond that has shaped us across generations, our connection to the land and the people of Israel. Whether we live there or not, whether we agree with every decision of her leaders or not, Israel's fate is bound up in ours. It is part of our inheritance. It is part of our vow. And this brings us to tonight, to Kol Nidre. Less a prayer and more of a declaration, Kol Nidre reminds us that even our holiest words are fragile, and yet we keep returning to begin again. No matter how many years we've heard it, those first aching notes still hold us in their grip, and the melody itself does the work. It draws us into the deepest places of the soul and lays our year before God and the threshold of Yom Kippur. The text isn't a prayer in the usual sense. It's actually a legal formula. All vows, all oaths, all commitments we could not keep, may they be annulled. Strange, isn't it? The holiest night of the year begins not with a praise or petition, but with the nullification of promises, an admission that despite our best intentions, words don't always match deeds. Kol Nidre is a declaration of humility. We confess that words exceed will, that promises sometimes shatter, that we are limited and life is unpredictable. But the night also insists for us on a deeper truth: community, forgiveness, and returning are stronger than our own failures. Rabbi Yosef Karo taught that Kol Nidre was never a loophole, but courage to face human limits. Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, alav shalom, said it transforms broken promises into the possibility of forgiveness. Vows are the marrow of Jewish identity. We're a covenanted people. The promise of Abraham and Sarah, the pledge at Sinai, Na'aseh v'nishma, we will do and we will hear. the wedding couple under the chuppah, the obligation each generation accepts to carry their Jewish identity forward. Our liturgy, too, is punctuated with vows to repair, to remember, to return, to choose life. But vows are heavy. They demand fidelity to ideals, justice, peace, mercy, while life insists on compromise. We break our word. We disappoint. Kol Nidre does not erase responsibility. Rather, it reframes it. It lets us set down what has become impossible to carry so we can carry better what still must be born. This year, I hear the Kol Nidre differently. October 7th changed everything. It reoriented assumptions about safety and power and seared into memory images too terrible to forget. It also sharpened the questions that we must ask. How do we act responsibly when every path carries pain? What does fidelity mean to our people when our hearts are torn by challenging truths? This is a time that has exposed the rawness of vulnerability and the necessity of strength. Jewish memory, the Inquisition, generations of pogroms, Auschwitz, teaches the consequences of our powerlessness. And yet, power can be perilous. Without conscience, it inevitably turns to cruelty. Our tradition actually commands us to hold both, wield necessary strength, and remain b'nei rachamim, children of mercy, fierce in defense and fierce in compassion. During one of my trips to Israel post-October 7th, I learned about Rimo Salman El Hozael, a Bedouin policeman at the Nova Festival. Armed with only a pistol, he drove again and again into the killing fields, saving 200 young people. When asked about his deeds, he simply said, "I did my duty." Survivors call him a hero, and his courage belies the simple binaries of identity. A Muslim Bedouin who saved Israeli youth, insisting that strength and mercy can in fact dwell together. And yet, even though acts of humanity shine like beacons, the broader reality remains unbearably fractured. Hostages remain in captivity. Families live in torment. Too many innocents, Israeli and Palestinian, have been killed, and the shattering destruction of homes and cities continues to weigh on us. Anti-Semitism has surged in cities and at home and abroad, and far too many otherwise decent people exhibit a blind spot when it comes to Jewish or Palestinian suffering. We see Jewish settler violence in the West Bank and hear the painful rhetoric of far-right ministers who speak of annexation when they should be bringing our hostages home first and foremost and working to end this war. And yet, while the world's narratives flatten this complexity, Kol Nidre asks us for a different posture, one of humility. We cannot reduce another's suffering to a talking point. We cannot let outrage calcify into hardness of heart. Humility calls us to soften, to admit what we cannot know, and to leave room for truths beyond our very own. Humility also means facing Israel in all of her complexity, with pride, with pain, and with an unbreakable bond. My colleague and friend Rabbi Elliot Cosgrove puts it plainly. To love Israel is to praise what is praiseworthy, to critique what must be critiqued, and to never relinquish the bond of peoplehood that ties us to her fate. This is our generational vow. Stay in relationship with Israel, even when it hurts. Love with open eyes, argue as sacred family, protect without dehumanizing, mourn without ranking grief. The stakes are incredibly high because beyond geopolitics lies a spiritual danger. If we surrender our moral vocabulary, and by that I mean study, debate, conscience, compassion, I can promise you we risk catastrophe. While some argue that empathy is weakness, the Torah is crystal clear. The opposite is abundantly true. For 2 millennia, our people have wrestled, argued, learned, and crucially checked power with conscience. Kol Nidre invites exactly that, not silence or sloganeering, but moral discernment. Even in warfare, Torah places a gate of conscience at the city line. Deuteronomy 20 teaches us when you approach a city for battle, first you call out for peace. Our sages imagine Moses himself modeling this, striving for peace even when conflict seems inevitable. It's a staggering claim. Do what you must do to defend life, and still, where possible, open a door to mercy. This season tests our empathy. Too often we're told it's zero-sum. Caring for one side betrays the other. But our tradition teaches a different arithmetic of the heart. On Rosh Hashanah, we read of Hagar and Ishmael, both cast into the wilderness. The text telling us that God hears the boy's cry. The question Torah poses to us is not whose tears count, but will you hear? Fear of the one not like us can disable empathy. That's why Torah repeats over and over, love the stranger, to keep our hearts from hardening. So the question before us is not abstract, it is urgent. How do we take these truths and actually live them? 1, humility. Acknowledge our limits. We will not control history or keep every vow perfectly. Kol Nidre insists we tell the truth about that. 2, commitment. Return to durable promises, to God and to Torah, to Jewish peoplehood, to Israel's well-being, to human dignity. Let it be specific. Go learn. Give tzedakah or charity. Write to a hostage family. Support those on the front lines of rescue and care for all that are in need. Engage in disagreement without contempt. The 3rd, courage. Speak honestly about what is broken without walking away. Hold Israel in love while insisting our ideals guide her leadership's behavior. Resist the temptation to let fear or fatigue choose for us. 4th, compassion. We need to remain b'nei rachamim, children of mercy, even when the headlines harden us. Let sorrow breathe empathy, not indifference. Empathy for another's child, I want to remind you, is not a threat to our own. It is the proof that our moral compass still works. And finally, od lo ad vatikvatenu, our hope is not yet lost. Jonathan Poland, whose son Hirsch was murdered after months in captivity, said, and I mentioned it last year, in a competition of pain, there are no winners. He teaches us to carry the shards together, to make from brokenness a place for healing. Hope is not naive optimism. It's the discipline of showing up when despair would be easier. Hope leads us back to love, the hardest and the most demanding kind. As a Jew and a Zionist, loving Israel means loving real people and not abstractions. Children in Shar HaNegev who know sirens before they learn math. Countless there who long for a different path forward. Loving our own community enough to preserve our bonds when we disagree. Love is not about moral purity or shouting slogans. It means taking responsibility, holding complexity, sitting with grief no matter where it originates, and refusing to flatten lives into caricatures. This Beit Knesset, this house of gathering, must remain a refuge where we can bring our full hearts, anger and grief, fear and faith, pride and protest. If we cannot carry these tensions here, where are we going to carry them? And Kol Nidre does not let us off the hook. It purifies our promises. Tonight we annul the vows that we cannot keep, those words that are uttered in haste, those expectations born of ego more than God. Tonight, we actually choose the vows that we will keep, to hold our people with dignity, to defend life with moral clarity, to love in the presence of complexity, to pursue peace even when it feels impossible, to see the image of God even when fear tempts us to forget. On this Kol Nidre, we ask to be released from the weight of impossible promises and open us up to the vows that truly matter. To be a people who bear power without losing mercy and who refuse to surrender either conviction or love. We ask that the chaos and the pain of this moment serve as a portal, not to despair or to destruction, but to transformation and to flourishing. And perhaps like the big house, where history, memory, and promise all converge, we too can feel the roar of generations behind us, urging us to take up the vows that now belong to us. We stand with Abraham and Sarah, with those who said at Sinai, we will do and we will hear, with those who rebuild in every age, and with those who refuse to let the Jewish story end because our ancestors refused to let our narrative be one where our vows are declared with haste and hatred. Tonight, as the melody carries what words cannot, let us whisper an ancient pledge that has sustained us in our darkest hours. Lo amut ki ehyeh v'asaper ma'aseh yah. I shall not die, but live and declare the works of the living God. Gemar Chatima Tova.